Have you ever noticed something strange about getting older? The more you try to open up and share, thinking it'll bring you closer to those you love, the more complicated things seem to become. Not always, not with every word, but just enough to leave a mark. You speak with honesty, thinking it will build trust. You offer your thoughts gently, hoping to help. But sometimes, instead of connection, what follows is confusion, tension, silence. And you're left wondering, did I say too much? There was a time when I believed that openness was the foundation of every healthy relationship. That being honest with your children, your siblings, even your grandchildren, would keep the bond strong. But as the years passed, I came to learn something very different. After 65, there is a new kind of wisdom that emerges. Not from saying everything, but from knowing what not to say. Not because you're hiding anything, but because peace in this stage of life is worth more than being understood. Sometimes silence is not secrecy, it's self-respect. And if that idea resonates with you even a little, I invite you to stay with me. Because in this video, I'm going to walk you through 5 specific things that, in my experience, are better kept quietly in your heart. Not because they're shameful, not because you're trying to deceive anyone, but because protecting your inner peace, your independence, and your dignity is one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself after 65. You've spent decades taking care of others. You've explained yourself over and over again. But now, it's your turn to choose calm over conflict, privacy over pressure, and grace over guilt. These are the years you get to live life on your terms, not filtered through other people's expectations, judgments, or interpretations. And I'll say this now, before we go further, some of what I'll share may surprise you. It might even challenge the way you've been taught to think about honesty and family. But if you've ever walked away from a conversation feeling drained, judged, or quietly regretful about something you said, then maybe, just maybe, it's time to shift the way we think about what we share. Up ahead, I'll begin with something that many seniors feel obligated to talk about, but often regret later. It starts with the idea that being transparent is the right thing to do, but the truth, it can open doors you may not be ready to walk through. Before we begin, I'd love for you to gently tap the like button if anything I've said so far has spoken to you. Subscribe if you feel like this is the kind of space you want to return to. And if at any moment you feel like sharing your story in the comments, I promise we're listening. We read every word. This is your space too. Now let's begin, because the first secret is something that too many good-hearted people learn the hard way. It often starts with a simple conversation, maybe around the dinner table, maybe during a quiet afternoon visit. A family member asks, "So how are things going with your money? Have you sorted everything out?" And because you love them and you want to be open, you share a little more than you plan. You talk about your savings, the house, your plans, maybe even your will. You think it will ease their minds. You imagine they'll feel reassured, proud even, that you've planned ahead. But then something shifts. The questions begin. Suggestions start flowing in, some gentle, others not so much. Why are you still living in that big place all by yourself? Shouldn't you think about investing differently? Have you considered giving something to the grandkids now, while you can see them enjoy it? And before you realize it, your peaceful sense of control begins to fray. What once felt like your own private, carefully managed life suddenly feels examined, judged, rearranged by voices that don't live your life, but feel entitled to reshape it. I remember a woman named Joyce. She was graceful, thoughtful, 78 years old, and had spent decades saving and managing her finances with quiet pride. She had 3 grown children who loved her deeply. One day, believing transparency was the loving thing to do, she shared her financial plans with them, every detail. She thought they'd be relieved, that they'd feel comforted knowing everything was in order. But instead, they began to offer opinions. One of her daughters brought over a financial advisor without asking. Another suggested selling the house. Every phone call, every visit started to include a comment, a question, a nudge. Joyce, once proud and independent, found herself second-guessing her own choices. She felt watched. She felt small. It wasn't done in malice. That's what makes it so difficult. The people we love often think they're helping, when in reality, they're slowly chipping away at something sacred, our sense of agency. And once that dynamic begins, it's very hard to reverse. You start to wonder if you need to explain every purchase. You hesitate before booking that vacation, upgrading your kitchen, or giving a small gift, just in case it leads to questions. But here's what I want to say, heart to heart. You don't owe anyone an itemized breakdown of how you live your life. You don't have to defend the joy you invest in. You've worked for your peace, and you deserve to keep it. Privacy is not secrecy, it's protection. It's honoring the space you need to breathe and make choices freely. Of course, planning ahead is important. Absolutely. Having a clear will, assigning a trusted power of attorney, and setting up someone you deeply trust to communicate your wishes when the time comes. Those are smart, responsible acts of love. But sharing every detail before it's time, before you're ready, can turn a relationship from supportive into supervisory. And you'll feel it the moment it happens. That pause before spending your own money, that little hesitation before mentioning your plans, that feeling that someone is watching your wallet more than they're watching over your heart. That's the red flag. So if you've ever felt that tug, that quiet discomfort after sharing something about your finances, you're not alone. You're not unkind. You're not selfish. You're wise. You're protecting the very life you built with your own hands over years of effort and sacrifice. And you have every right to decide what stays yours. Let's carry that clarity with us because the next truth is even more personal. It's about your body, your health, and something you might not realize. Sharing too much about how you feel can change the way others treat you, sometimes in ways that quietly chip away at your confidence. Ready to explore that together? Let's continue. It often begins with something small, a comment in passing. I didn't sleep well last night. Or, my knees have been a little stiff lately. You say it casually without much thought, maybe over a cup of tea or while chatting on the phone. You're not complaining. You're simply sharing what's going on, the same way you always have. After all, what's more human than talking about how you're feeling? But then the responses start to come, faster, more intense than you expected. You should go see a doctor. Maybe it's time to stop gardening. Do you think it's safe for you to be driving alone? And suddenly something shifts. The tone changes. The check-ins increase. You begin to notice a slight hesitation in the voices of your children when you mention plans. They start offering to run your errands. They insist on coming over more often, not just out of love, but out of worry. You feel it, don't you? That slow redefinition of who you are in their eyes. It happened to my friend Tom. He's 74, still full of life, sharp and spirited. One afternoon after working in his garden, he casually mentioned to his daughter that his shoulders were a little sore. He meant it as nothing more than a passing thought. But by the end of that week, she had made a doctor's appointment, called him morning and night to check in, and even suggested hiring someone to do the gardening for him. All because of one sentence. Tom wasn't angry. He knew her heart was in the right place. But he couldn't shake the feeling that something precious had been taken from him. That invisible freedom to be seen as capable, self-reliant, still whole. You see, when we talk too much about every ache and pain, especially the minor ones, it can quietly reshape how people see us. They might not do it consciously, but their concern starts to color every interaction. Suddenly, you're not invited to the long walks, the family trip, or even the dinner out, because someone assumes you're not up for it. And just like that, your world gets smaller, not because of your body, but because of the image others are building in their minds. That doesn't mean you should hide things that are serious. Not at all. If something is truly affecting your daily life, if you need support or medical attention, please speak up. Your well-being matters, but the little things, the manageable things, the everyday ups and downs of being human after 65, they don't all need to be shared. They don't all need a spotlight. There's strength in knowing your own body, in trusting your instincts, in deciding this is something I can handle on my own. It's not denial, it's dignity. It's the quiet confidence that says, I'm still in charge of my life. Because getting older doesn't mean becoming invisible. And it certainly doesn't mean surrendering your independence for the sake of someone else's comfort. You've lived long enough to know the difference between needing help and needing space. between wanting support and wanting sovereignty. So if you've ever caught yourself hesitating before mentioning a small health concern, trust that instinct. You're not being secretive. You're being wise. You're choosing to protect how others see you. You're guarding the freedom to live life without someone hovering, interpreting, or reshaping your story through their lens of worry. And now, as we continue, I want to gently bring you into the next truth, one that's perhaps the most emotionally delicate of all. It's about what you think about your own family, and why sometimes even the most heartfelt opinions are better left unsaid. It can be one of the hardest lessons to learn, especially for someone who has spent a lifetime offering love, guidance, and support to their family. We grow up believing that speaking from the heart is always the right thing to do. That being honest, especially with our children and loved ones, is a sign of trust, of closeness, of care. And for many years, that belief serves us well. But as we get older, something shifts. We begin to see that even the gentlest truth, spoken with love, can land in the wrong way. And once spoken, it can't be taken back. I remember a woman named Elaine from our reading group. She was warm, thoughtful, and adored her grandchildren. One day, while visiting her daughter's home, she softly mentioned that perhaps it was time her grandson started picking up his toys after playtime. It wasn't a harsh comment, just a passing suggestion. But within days, Elaine noticed a distance. The phone didn't ring as often. Invitations became rare. Her daughter, who used to call every evening, suddenly seemed colder. And over time, Elaine realized that her words, meant as helpful, had been taken as judgment. That small moment of honesty had created a crack that never quite healed. This happens more often than we like to admit. You offer a small piece of advice. You comment on a parenting choice, or a financial decision, or the way someone in the family handled a situation. You say it gently, maybe even with a smile. But the reaction you get back isn't what you expected. It's resistance, silence, or worse, a wall that wasn't there before. As we age, we find ourselves in a strange position. We're the elders, yes, but we're also walking on eggshells, trying not to say too much, trying not to be misunderstood, trying not to become the problem in someone else's story. And what makes it even harder is that our intentions are good. We want to help. We want to bring harmony. We want to use our wisdom to guide the ones we love. But here's the truth I've learned. Even the kindest guidance can turn into a weapon when someone isn't ready to hear it. Even soft words can ignite defensiveness. And when it comes to family, emotions run deep. Wounds from the past, even if unspoken, linger just beneath the surface. So what you see as a gentle reminder might be received as an attack. What you meant as a caring observation might be heard as criticism. And in those moments, you lose something precious. Not just the ease of conversation, but the openness you once had with that person. Because they begin to see you not as a safe presence, but as someone who might hurt them, even unintentionally. So what do? You choose stillness. You choose silence. Not because you don't care, but because you care deeply. You recognize that peace is more valuable than being right, that relationships are more important than opinions, that sometimes the most loving thing you can say is nothing at all. You can still be present, still listen, still smile, still say, "I trust you'll figure it out." You can be the steady, quiet presence in the room, the one who isn't there to solve or fix or guide, but simply to love. And that presence, I promise you, can be more powerful than any advice you could offer. Because at this stage in life, peace is not just a hope, it's a need, a necessity, a treasure you've earned through every lesson, every loss, every long night, and difficult conversation you've already lived through. So if you're ever tempted to speak up during a family disagreement, pause, breathe, ask yourself, will this help or will it hurt? And if the answer isn't clear, let your wisdom guide you into quiet. And now I invite you to walk with me a little deeper, into a place we all carry inside, a place of reflection, of memory, of what we wish we'd done differently. Regrets, the small and the great. And why perhaps some of them are best kept close to the heart. There's a moment that comes to many of us as we get older, a quiet hour alone, a walk through a familiar place, a song that stirs something deep. And suddenly we're thinking about the past, not just with nostalgia, but with a kind of ache. The things we didn't do, the choices we might have made differently, the people we lost touch with, the dreams we set aside. It's a natural part of growing older, this gentle reckoning with time. And sometimes in a moment of vulnerability, we speak those thoughts aloud. I wish I had traveled more. I wish I hadn't worked so much. I wish I hadn't let that opportunity pass. We don't say these things to wound. We say them because they're part of our truth. They've lived quietly in us for decades, and now they rise to the surface. But here's the delicate thing about regrets. When we speak them out loud, especially in front of our loved ones, they can land in ways we never intended. I remember a woman named Linda. She was a pillar of strength, a caregiver her entire life, and deeply devoted to her children. One afternoon during a simple chat with her daughter, she said, "I sometimes wish I hadn't given up my career." She said it with a faraway look in her eyes, more to herself than to anyone else. But her daughter went quiet. And in the weeks that followed, Linda noticed a shift. There was tension now, hesitation, like a door had quietly closed. What Linda meant as a passing reflection, her daughter heard as something else entirely. Was I not worth the sacrifice? And that's the unseen weight of spoken regrets. They don't just live in your own story anymore. They enter someone else's. Your children, your partner, even your friends may begin to question if they were part of your pain. They might feel blame for choices they never made, and in their minds, your longing for what could have been becomes a reflection of what wasn't enough. There's also something else. When you speak of regrets, often people begin to see you not as someone who is still living, but as someone who is looking backward. They may start treating you with a quiet caution, unsure of what words might reopen an old wound. The energy shifts from present to past, from connection to caution, but you don't have to carry that weight aloud. This doesn't mean denying your feelings. It doesn't mean pretending everything was perfect. It means understanding that some reflections are sacred. They are meant for your own inner peace, not for someone else's interpretation. You can honor your journey without reopening old chapters. You can sit with your memories gently, with kindness, without needing to say them out loud to find meaning. And when the moment arises, when the past tugs at you, there is another way to speak. Instead of saying, "I wish I had," try saying, "I've learned a lot from that." Because that shift in language changes everything. It carries gratitude. It offers closure. It keeps the lesson without spreading the sorrow. You have every right to feel everything you feel, but you also have the right to protect others from carrying burdens that were never meant to be theirs. Your peace doesn't come from retelling the past. It comes from the grace with which you live with it. And as we near the final secret, the one that echoes all the rest, I want to remind you of something simple but profound. Not every truth needs an audience. Some truths are strong enough to live quietly inside your heart, where they can grow into something softer, something healing, something that belongs only to you. Now let's step into the final space together, where wisdom, protection, and quiet strength meet. A place where the lines between love and boundaries are clearest. Money again, but deeper this time. The full truth about your financial reality and why holding it close might be the most powerful act of self-preservation you can make. It's a subject that seems to follow us everywhere as we age. Money. Not because we're obsessed with it, but because others are. Conversations around it can be subtle, dressed in concern, coded in care. Have you thought about downsizing? Are you planning to leave something for the grandkids? Do you need help managing your accounts? These questions often come with smiles, with warm voices, sometimes even with good intentions. But beneath the surface, there's something else, something quieter, something unsettling. Because the moment people know you have enough, everything changes. They begin to look at you differently, not with malice, not always with greed, but with a shifted lens. Suddenly, they're curious. They ask more. They expect more. And what once felt like a personal, private part of your life starts to feel like public property. It's not always so direct. Sometimes it's a cousin who never called suddenly showing up, chatting more than usual. A grandchild who asks about inheritance, not out of disrespect, but curiosity, nudged by something they heard. And sometimes it's a grown child who worries about your spending, not because you're being reckless, but because they've begun to feel entitled to what's yours. And it cuts both ways. Because if you share too much and you're doing well, you open the door to pressure, expectations of generosity, of gifts, of help. You may start to feel that your joy, your choice to take a trip or buy a new appliance or invest in your well-being needs to be justified. You feel watched even when no one says it aloud. But if you share too much and you're struggling, the reaction can be just as painful. You may find yourself the subject of worry, of unsolicited advice, of constant checking in. Your independence quietly erodes. You're no longer seen as capable but fragile. At best, pitied. At worst, managed. It's such a delicate line. And the worst part? Once you share these things, once you lay it all out, you can't take it back. That knowledge lives in the minds of others, and with it comes influence, commentary, and control. True freedom in your later years isn't just about financial stability. It's about autonomy, about knowing you can make decisions without outside pressure, about having the right to say, "This is mine. This is my life. This is how I choose to live it." You have every right to hire a financial advisor, to plan your estate, to choose a trusted executor. These are wise, empowering actions. But beyond what's necessary, you have no obligation to share your net worth, your retirement accounts, your spending habits, or even your financial fears with anyone who hasn't earned that level of trust. Because real respect isn't about knowing your numbers, it's about honoring your right to keep them private. If someone only shows up when money is mentioned, that's not a connection, that's a transaction, and you deserve better. You deserve relationships built on love, presence, laughter, memories, not on assumptions about your wallet. So protect it, not out of fear, not out of secrecy, but out of wisdom. You've spent a lifetime building something. Let it serve you now. Let it give you ease. Let it give you space. And remember this, a joyful retirement isn't about how much you give. It's about how freely you get to live, on your own terms, in your own way, with your own rhythm. As we close this conversation, I want to ask you something simple, but meaningful. Not as a lecture, not as advice, just as a moment between us, from one soul to another. What's one truth you're choosing to keep just for yourself? Maybe it's a dream you're still holding on to, a boundary you finally set, a quiet choice that brings you peace. Whatever it is, honor it, hold it close. Because not every truth is meant to be shared. Some are meant to be cherished. And if this video has given you a new way to think about peace, presence, and the power of privacy, I'd be honored if you'd let me know. Tap the like button if this touched something in you. Leave a comment if you feel safe to do so. I promise, this is a space of kindness. And if you want more conversations like this, where wisdom is shared with care, I invite you to subscribe. This journey isn't over, and you don't have to walk it alone. Until next time, take care of your peace. Guard it gently, and remember, it's not selfish to protect your soul. It's sacred. And now, before we part ways, let me offer you one last thought. Not as a closing, but as a beginning. You've spent a lifetime giving. You've offered your time, your care, your guidance, your strength. You've navigated change, loss, joy, sacrifice. And through it all, you've learned, sometimes the hard way, that peace is fragile. It doesn't shout. It doesn't demand. It whispers. It lives in quiet choices, in soft boundaries, in the moments you decide what to share and what to protect. There is a grace that comes with age, and it's not in how much you explain yourself. It's in how little you feel the need to. You've earned that grace. You've earned the right to keep some things sacred, to choose calm over chaos, silence over stress, dignity over drama. The world around you might not always understand. Some may call it distance, some may call it secrecy. But you and I, we know better. It's wisdom, it's discernment, it's self-respect wrapped in quiet strength. You don't have to share everything to be loved. You don't have to explain your choices to be respected. You don't have to bear every part of your heart to be connected. Sometimes what connects us most deeply is the understanding that we are whole people with histories, with feelings, with dreams that don't always need to be spoken to be real. Sometimes the strongest relationships are those where space is honored and silence is safe. So as you move forward from this moment, I hope you walk with more clarity, with a softer step, with a heart that knows it can rest because it no longer needs to prove anything, not to anyone. And if anything you've heard today has helped you feel seen or understood or even gently challenged, then this time we've spent together has been worthwhile. If you'd like to keep growing with us, you know where to find me. There's a seat at the table, always open just for you. Please take a moment to like this video if it resonated with your heart. Share it with someone you trust, someone who, like you, is seeking peace, not noise. And in the comments below, if you feel called to, tell me, what's one thing you're choosing to keep for yourself, starting today? We read every word, and often it's your stories that carry this community forward. Thank you for being here. Until we meet again, protect your joy, guard your calm, and hold your inner peace as the treasure it truly is.